you have to talk. So we'll do this as a kind of a discussion, so you guys can remember things.
We had
It
several.
will be. You guys had several lectures, right? What are the lectures?
Introduction to television.
Okay. Was that the only lecture, or you had several other lectures?
What is news was also done.
Okay. Guys, we have to talk so we can have a proper discussion and also the learning experience. Not like the school that the teacher comes and speak and you guys listen and prepare not. That is not going to work. So we'll have a discussion and we'll do the lessons. Okay. And apologies that I don't have a proper presentation today because I just landed last night to the country. I was out of the country for a conference. So your topics today are the structure, editorial, and management capacity newspaper, understanding newspaper editions, types of newspapers, and the Sri Lankan newspapers, and the history of newspaper. So how many here read newspapers? Maybe in PDF or maybe in the printed version or the hard copy. Okay, Hussein is reading. Anyone else? She, right? I pronounced the name correctly, right? Who else? Only 2 people in the class. Okay, Tulasi is reading. Or your parents buy newspapers and you don't read, or what? Okay, there are a few people, I think parents are buying the newspapers, but they are not reading. And someone who's in the iPhone, can you please rename?
That is me, it's me.
Okay, sorry, network. Okay, so there are few people who are reading, or maybe the parents are buying newspapers. So anyone listening to the TV programs that the newspaper reading in the morning? Many, I mean, all the TV channels have different programs in the morning. They read newspapers and also put their opinions into that.
Yes.
Okay, Tulasi, who else? So can you, those people who raise their hands to say that they are reading or their parents buy newspapers, and also said that they are watching the morning programs that presenters read newspapers. Can you guys name several newspapers in the country?
Lankadeepa.
Okay, Lankadeepa. What else?
Veerakesari.
Silumina.
Veerakesari, Silumina, and there's Abdul Singh, Aruna, Dinamina. What else?
The Sunday Times.
The Sunday Times.
Daily Mirror.
Daily Mirror.
Daily News.
Oh, someone said morning, right?
No.
I didn't get you. Is it Bashini? I didn't hear you properly.
It's, I'm reading it online. Raw Media.
Okay, that's not a newspaper, but they have a website. Okay, so Dinamina, Aruna Tulsa, I'm sorry that I didn't saw your earlier message, e-paper. So in Sri Lanka, when you look at the newspapers, there's similar structures and also there is a different management. So one said Silumina and Dinamina. So what are those newspapers? Who own those newspapers? Can somebody answer the question? Who owns Dinamina and Silumina? Okay, can someone say who owns Lankadeepa, Sunday Times, Daily Mirror, and Maubima? No one knows about the ownership.
Yeah, by Vijay newspapers.
Okay, so what are the newspapers that owns by Vijay newspapers?
I just know Lankadeepa is owned by Vijay newspapers.
Okay, Lankadeepa is owned by Vijay newspapers. What else? You guys
Daily Mirror.
answer Daily Mirror. So you guys
Sunday Times.
Sunday Times. You guys said certain names. You know the answers, but you have to make it into the proper structure. So you guys know what you have heard things, but you have to remind those. Okay, so Vijay newspapers, is it a private one or a government one?
It's a private.
Okay, it's a private one. So when you look at the newspaper structures or the management structures in the country, in Sri Lanka, there are two, we can identify two main management systems. One is private, one is the state or the government. Whenever the government, whoever the government comes into power, they run the state media, or they run the Lake House, Rupavahini, ITN, Lakhanda. So all those state-owned or the government, sorry, the state-owned newspapers or the media will be run by the government in the power. So Lake House, was it a state-owned media earlier or from the beginning, or was it later owned by the government? Anyone knows the history? You guys can say there are no correct or wrong answers. We here to learn. So whatever you know, whatever you comes to mind, you can share with the group, with the class, so we can study from the mistakes. And when we are talking, we learn from that. And also, you guys are learning journalism. So what is journalism? Give me a simple answer. By doing journalism, we enjoy a right that is given to us by the state, by the constitution. What is it? Okay, tell me how many here are using social media? Okay, Abdul, only Abdul. We're on Hussein, who else? George is the right? Okay, all of you use social media. So what do you do by using social media? You post pictures, you might post videos, or you might share stuff someone else already put in Facebook or Instagram or in Twitter. In Twitter, you retweet. No, not, yeah, it's a form of collecting news. But what do you guys do? You went on a trip and you take a photo and put it on Facebook or maybe in Instagram. You put stories in all those platforms. Okay. When I saying share news, Hussein is share what he reads. What else? Daily up. You can, yeah, you can get daily updates. But what do? Okay, let me make it simple. You write an essay. What is it? Yeah, let people know in a way. Yes, it's correct. The answers that you have given are correct, but there's one simple thing. Information, yes, but you're not saying what I'm going to say. What do? Maybe we write and post in Facebook. Maybe we publish a photo. We express ourselves, right? Isn't it? Yeah, it's a way of communication. So aren't we express ourselves? Yes, we use Hussein, we use social media to provide accurate and updated information to the society. Aren't we express ourselves in social media? Tell me yes or no. Yes, we express ourselves. So journalism is one way of yes, Hussein. Journalism is one way of expressing ourselves, or we enjoy the right that is given by the Constitution to the freedom of expression. So journalism is kind of the way that people, on behalf of the people, a number of people who call journalists, maybe they write for the newspapers, maybe they present in the television, or maybe in the TV, and we now have websites, social media, or newsletters, different kinds of stuff. And today's journalism world is vast, and there are so many areas or the platforms we can use. So hereby, the newspapers in Sri Lanka have two management structures, or two capacities of managing the newspaper. So one is private, one is the state. So I asked you guys a question. The Lake House, was it from the beginning privately owned media house, or a public state-owned one? So about Lake House, there's a long story way back to the 1920s, 1930s, way back to the post-independent era.
Sir, currently it's government owned, isn't it?
Yeah, currently it's government owned. We call it state-owned, not the government, state-owned. But was it from the beginning? So there should be two answers. If someone can say yes, someone can say no, it's not publicly owned or state-owned one. What do you guys think about it?
It was originally public, but then bought by the government later on.
Originally it was private. Okay, then it became then it was owned by the state or the government. It happened in 1970s. So have you heard? Yes. Not Vijay Sekhar, it's Dr. Vijayawardena, the father.
Yeah, Vijayawardena. Sorry.
Okay, so Dr. Vijayawardena, we what do you call, we think, or we figure him out as the father of the modern newspaper world in the country. So his son is Ranjit Vijayawardena. He's the one who owns the Vijay newspapers now. They started Vijay newspapers in I think in the 80s, and then they started Lankadeepa, Sunday Times, and all those. And all those certain other newspapers which were primarily owned by the Sunday, MD Gunasena Publishing House. They are the one who published The Sun and and the single newspaper called Davasa. So there were so many newspapers in the country. And dear Vijayawardhana, who studied in London or the UK, and then came back to Sri Lanka, and he saw how the Indian freedom struggle goes, and so. He thought of establishing or starting a newspaper house. So they started Silumina, Dinamina, Daily News, the Sunday Observer. Those are the history of the modern newspaper world in Sri Lanka, or the modern newspapers. But prior to that, there were Jnanarathapadipa. So that was from the Catholic Church. And then during the British time, there were one called Gazette. There were several other newspapers which were published before Dr. Vijayawardhana started Lake House. So when we talk about the capacity, once again, so there are two things. That one is the government owned or the state owned, and then the private sector. Those are the two major categories that we can see in our country. But when you look at certain other countries, for an example, USA, there are no publicly owned or the state owned newspapers. All of them are privately owned. And even in India, it's kind of limited. And when it comes to UK or the British, it's very much similar. So when you look at so many examples around the world, most newspapers or the most media channels, radios are owned by private sector. But it is different when it comes to the countries like China. Everything is owned by the state or the government. Now we basically say the state, because state is the concept that we're going to change. The governments can change because people elect governments. So up to now, you understand what is the capacity in management or the management systems in newspaper? Or you guys have any questions? I will send you reading materials and a proper note about this. For now, we make this kind of a discussion. So up to now, anyone understood everything or has any questions? Any questions? Clear. Hussein says clear. What about the others? I think there are 10 or more people.
Yes, sir.
Okay, she had 2 people said yes.
Yes, sir.
Clear. Okay. Anyone else? Fine. Who else? Okay. So anyone knows who is in the newspapers or the people? Or how newspaper runs, how people write, what that you read, whatever that you read, how it's done. Can somebody say? So you get a newspaper and there are names who has written the news. Sometimes there are not names, and it is different in the last page, it's different in the front page. Can someone say how it's done? Any idea? Okay, I'm going to call out names. Abdul, Amirta, Bashini, I don't know, Dimana, George, Hussein, Shiha, Tulasi, Veron. Anyone has any idea about how it's done? How the newspaper comes to your hand? Or maybe the PDF version? You guys can say what do you think, or what do you imagine about the newspapers, how it's done?
I believe
After
there's a big network before it comes to a paper. There's a lot of process from public to
Okay.
journalists to the editorial committee and to the press media.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Was it Abdul, right? No, sorry,
Saying
it's Hussein. Hussein. Sorry. And someone was going to say something. Who's that?
after several processes, including editing and all.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Who else? Thank you,
So,
Bashini.
could it be that first the journalist writes the article, then it's gone through a process of rechecking for word error, then it's gone through the editor who selects which article must go where, then technical editing where they create the font of the newspaper, numbers, page titles, layouts, then a PDF version, either it's released online or that version is given to the publishing prints the paper and delivers it. Maybe that's how.
Yes. Yeah. So all the three of you said was correct, but it should be in different ways. Okay. So as Hussein said, it's a big process, and also Bashani also said that. So it's a big process, and also you have to understand. I think it's Shihab who was speaking last. In newspapers, we call articles and we call news. So those are two different things. So article is a big thing, maybe 1,000 to 1,005 or 2,000 words. That's a big article. What we call an article. It's a big thing. But news is different. So in newspapers, news might be limited to 300 to 500 words, maybe even less. And also we call news features. It's a mix of news and also an article. So it's kind of a maybe this, you have seen the opinion pieces in newspapers. There are big articles, people explaining things or saying their ideology. And so there are different categories in newspapers, and there is an editorial as well. In the editorial page, there is opinion piece, what we call an op-ed, maybe not like in our country, but in other countries, there are op-eds as well. So opinion and editorial, so both comes together. And if you look at our papers, there's an editorial and also there's a political column, which someone who is outside the newspaper, maybe a professor, maybe a political analyst who writes that, or if someone from the newspaper interviews that kind of expert. But news is different. All you see in the front page of the newspaper and several other pages are news. What happened, what has the president said, what the prime minister has said, what is going with the QR passes or the fuel pass. And so all those are news. What happened in, there was an accident in somewhere, there's a bomb blast. All those are news, what you see in the news front page and several other pages, and also in the last page, simply maybe the sports news. And so that is how it's done. So there are several other press conferences, lot of things happening around the country. There are press conferences, there are events. So there are different desks in the newspapers. Basically, there's a feature desk. They are the ones who runs, or they are the ones who are responsible for the editorial. That earlier what I said, the political columns, they are the ones who are responsible for the editorial, the columns, cartoons, maybe the art and craft, or the books, or the literature, and about the film and drama. The feature desk is the one who is responsible for that. So there's a news desk. People who are in the news desk go out to collect news, go to the press conferences. They're going to cover the president. They're going to cover the ministries. They're going to cover the trade union or the protest. So people who are in the news desk. And there is also called sub desk, what we call sub editorial. They are the ones who check the news, which is written by a journalist. So in newspapers, news desk has to do a lot more work than the others, because they have to run daily. They have to work daily on different sectors. And also when I was in the newspaper, so I was assigned to cover the central bank, the foreign ministry, United Nations, and also embassies and in high commission in the country. And also I have to cover the president and the prime minister several times. So there are people who are assigned for several sectors, institutions. So I was given the what I have said. So there are people who covers the political parties. So there are people who has to cover the president. So people are assigned to cover these people, institution, organizations, and so and so. So they might be expert on that subject. So for a lot of years, I have to cover the foreign news. There we go get our news from AFP and Reuters. So here in Sri Lanka, newspaper outlets and other channels also pay amount of money to the newspaper agencies and get us. So we have paid for the Reuters and AFP. Those are news agencies. Those are different from BBC, CNN, New York Times. News agencies sell news, and the media outlets are different from news agencies. So there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are few news agencies around the world. Those are AFP, Reuters, AP, or Xinhua. So there are those news agencies. They sell news out to the other media outlets. So in feature desk, there are people who writes mostly the senior most journalist in the newspaper, or the editor himself writes the editorial. And there are people who are assigned to cover drama. There are people who runs the subsection about the books and the literature, and people who are assigned to cover films. So in newspaper, there are several sections for all those categories, and also there are sport desks, there are graphic desks. So in our country, it's kind of very small, but in other countries, there are a lot of desks like the feature desk, news desk. So if you look at the bigger newspapers like New York Times, Washington Post, Guardian, they have different sections for different parts of the world as well. So in New York Times, Washington Post, and other several big newspapers, they have South Asia desk, African desk. So those people cover Asia, Africa, maybe the Europe. And also there in several other newspapers, there are fact-checking units, investigative units. So when it depends on how much big is the newspaper. If it is a larger one or a bigger one, they have different desks, so many desks. But in Sri Lanka, because it's very small country and very small industry, the newspapers are. So there are a few desks like sports desk, newspaper, the news desk, the sports desk. And when there are several editors for the desk. So there is feature editor, news editor, chief sub-editor, sub-editors. So there are ranks in the editorial as well. So there is the editor, then there are consultant editors, there are political editors, there are sports editors. All those people then look at the news written by journalists. For an example, there is a journalist who covers or assigned to cover the president. So when there is something president has said, he has to write it. Sometimes there are press releases coming from all those institutions. For example, president's media net or the president's secretary might issue a press release. So that who's the person who is responsible to cover the president, write the news, and then he pass it to one of the news editors in the newspaper. Then he goes through the news and make corrections and make it clear and so, and the cutting and everything in the process. And then he passes that news to sub desk. And then the sub desk, maybe a sub editor, maybe the chief sub editor, then put a headline to the news item or the news, and then he passes it to the other sub editors who are responsible with the putting those news to in the correct places. So if it is a bigger news, the editor, sub editor, news editor discuss, and they put it in the front page, or they discuss in the every evening. What are we going to put as the lead news? What are we going to put in the front page? What are we going to put in these other pages? So there are sub editors who are responsible with what you call kind of a little booklet. So there it comes from the advertising department of the newspaper. Earlier it was, in early times, newspapers give 60% was given to the news, 40% to the advertisements. But now it has changed because we need money. Newspapers are in trouble. So for the space that is given for a newspaper, or the space given to advertisement in newspapers are huge, and there's less amount of space for the news or the written content. So what do you call, we call something kind of similar, small booklet, which is called dummy. So in that dummy, so you can see from the pages to here. So from the advertising department, they have put a box, there should be a advertisement. So the news goes in other space. Just like that for the several other pages. So there are then the, which is called layout desk or layout section, where there are people who are experts or people who are talented graphic design. They put the news, they put colors, they select colors, pictures, put the photos and everything, which is under the guidance of the sub editors. And also I forgot to tell, there is a photo desk as well. So there are photographers, videographers as well. In bigger newspapers, there are graphic designers who draw graphics about the things that happen in the for an example, if you select elections, they put graphics about the election results and so that's how the editorial process goes on. People go out, or people write within the house, or people look for news within the day, and there are investigative journalists who work for several time other than the other journalists. So this is this is in brief how the process goes on. When then the layout department finishes their job, the photocopies or the copies of the layouts or the print or the tomorrow's newspaper goes to the editor and the news editors, and they it again with the sub editors proofread everything. They change headings, headlines, and so, and then they will give the final okay to print the newspaper. When it's print, there are certain sections in the newspaper that goes to different parts. If you look at a newspaper that is in Colombo and that is in Kurunegala, Galle, or Jaffna, it is different. This difference can be checked within the sports page or the front page. Every other thing is very much similar, but the things that happen in the last comes in the last edition, or the what we call midnight edition, or the morning editions, or the Colombo edition. So the newspapers that are sent to Jaffna are printed by 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Those will be finished within that time because they have to be traveled. Because we are a small country and a small industry, there are few printing machines everyone has. Every newspaper organization or outlet has 2 or more than, or not more than 3, but 1 or 2 or maybe 3. So because most of those are situated in Colombo, and those has to be sent to Jaffna or other parts of the country, those editions will be finished early. Only the Colombo or the midnight editions will be stay delayed. So this difference can be checked from the if there's an extraordinary gazette which was sent out by 11:30 or 12, or if there's a cricket match, you can see the difference. So if you look at a newspaper in Jaffna, they might have the first innings scorecard, or Jaffna people won't be able to read the full story about the cricket match, but Colombo people or the people around the Colombo will be able to read. So is there any question regarding that, what I have said, or anything you want to make clear, or anything you want to ask? Guys, everything is clear, or you want to make clear something, or you want to ask anything? And what I said was in brief. It's kind of a huge process, huge workload, and the work is different to each other day, because every other day is different from the last day. And I can say another example. There are a few instances that when I was in the newspaper, only our newspaper was able to put that news in the newspaper, because others have finished their work or others have gone home by that time. So I used to stay in the newspaper. My work started at 12 or 2, and I was usually stayed until midnight or maybe 12 o'clock. So there were instances where we were the only newspaper that was able to put that news in the newspaper. One example was Jayalalitha. And if there is something bigger happening, and we know that all the newspapers, all the people in the newsrooms will stay until midnight. For example, World Cup final or maybe election. So every other day in a newspaper is different to the last or the each other day. Is there anything that you want to make it clear, or you want to ask, or you want to clarify?
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
could you repeat once again what's written in an editorial, sir?
So editorial, it is the political or the ideology they stand for. Maybe the newspaper, maybe a current issue. So if you look at or the PTA, so or the recent errors, if the newspaper is against the PTA, what is PTA? If you read or if you look at news the last few days, you have seen. PTA is the Prevention of Terrorism Act. So there's an act called Prevention of Terrorism. So if you are against that act, and you might write an editorial against that. So it is the stance that the newspaper take on several issues, maybe on environmental pollution, maybe on fuel prices. So mostly all those are on the current issues, or based on current issues, or the current political or economic or the social context. And in the editorial, it's kind of the political or the economic or the social ideology they stand for. They might write in that way. So it will be different each other day, and also it differs according to the situation, so and maybe the government in power. So in Sri Lanka, people or the newspapers or the media channels come out and say that we're going to support this candidate, or we're going to support this political ideology or the political party. But in several other countries, it is clear that this newspaper stands for this political ideology. But in Sri Lanka, it is clearly seen, or we can kind of make it narrow down, that most newspapers stand for the Sinhala Buddhist ideology. But it might be different in several locations, several instances, and so it's kind of the ideology that the newspaper stand for on maybe any issue. Anything else? You guys can question me, and if you didn't understand anything that I have said until so far, you can ask me, or if you want to clarify anything, you can ask, or you can share with the class, or if you have experienced anything, you can share with the class. Yeah, I think we have more than 10 people. Just have to talk.
So I just can I ask something extra here?
Yeah, sure.
So as we are journalism student, is it possible for us to without working under an institution or a media unit, is it possible for us to write on papers without being in a institution or a media platform?
Yeah, so there are it's kind of a good question. So I said earlier that for the opinion pages or the opinions, the newspaper editorial or the feature desk might ask different experts on the different fields to write an article, or maybe the journalist in the newspaper or the in-house journalist will interview them. And there are certain other pages in the newspapers, those are dedicated to people who are outside. So there are pages for youth, there are pages for women, or the people who are experts in technology. So certain newspapers or certain people or the editorials dedicate a separate page for the outside writers. So if you write something and say send to the newspaper, they might publish. Or if you request that my article, I have written an article, can you publish it? So it's only on the editorial or the editor to publish it or not, but you can request, you can send what you have written. When I was in the school, I used to write to the newspapers, but none of those was published in the newspapers. And there are so many instances that happen in around the world, and there are so many famous stories as well. It's like J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. She went to, I think, 16 or 17 times to publishing houses to print her book, but most of them refused to print her book. So there are so many examples like that for the newspapers as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
What else? What else, guys? Okay. So tell me, everything is clear for now?
Yes.
Okay. Who else? Only Abdul answered.
Yes, sir.
Only two in the class? Are they sleeping? Or they would mute and have went somewhere? Hello, guys. Only two people responded so far. Okay. Abdul answered. Amirta, are you there? Bashini.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Umar.
So what is the procedure of starting a newspaper, sir? If we want to start an own newspaper for us, what is the procedure for that, sir?
So you can start if you have money.
Yes, sir. How to
Uh,
register the registration purpose and all?
So there are several legal proceedings they have to go through. And also, if you want to register it as a proper newspaper, you can go to the government information, and there are proceedings like that. And it's up to you to register it as a newspaper or a media company. It depends on you and the capital that you have. So it goes with the Company Act as well, or the company registration. So it depend on the capital that you have and which way that you want to register the newspaper, and which way you want to do it.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it.
Okay. So others, let me know if everything is clear until now. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you guys didn't understand anything. Only 3 people have answered so far. Oh, she answered.
So can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure, Hussein.
So you told me that when it's come to the network, the chief editor will collect the news from the journalist, right? So you told if I have to write personally, that will be go only in the opinion article side, not in the news side. So where does the journalist come from for the news part? Is it from the organization or freelancers, or what is that process where they come from?
Okay. the editor not collect the news. Editor is the bigger one, or the person who responsible for the newspaper. But there are news editor. They are the one who collects. It's not kind of collecting. They assign people to write this, go to this press conference, write this, cover this, like that. So when they written the news items, they present or give them to the news editor, and then he gives them to the sub editors. But there's a kind of a very exclusive news or very important news, they consult with the editor. So there's only one chief editor in the newspaper, and there might be several consultant editors, or maybe people like political editors or the economic editors. There are people in newspapers. It is different to the news. If you look at Sunday Times in Sri Lanka, they have a political editor, they have a defense editor, they have a diplomatic editor. So it is different to the each other newspaper. And also in newspapers, there are full-time journalists who are paid a full salary or a fixed salary, and there are freelance journalists. They are not full-time journalists, but they work according to the given task or the time that they have. So there are people who come from the universities or the journalism college who works as freelancers. They were given an allowance and also some money according to or depend on their work. So opinion pieces are different. Opinion pieces are kind of that is given to experts, but the smaller ones or like people like us can't write opinion pieces. That has to be from an expert. So that is how newspapers work. I can write an opinion piece because I have worked so many times in the newspaper, and I know people. If I want to write something and want to publish, I can write something and send it to a person I know or an editor I know. But when it comes to the readers, if they want to write something and publish it in the newspapers, they have to send to the respective pages of the respective editors, or there are respective pages that are allocated or dedicated to the readers. That is very much similar to the art page, where it was given to the children to publish their art or the drawings. And there are pages which are allocated to the poems, when whoever writes a poem can send it to that page, or the journalist or the editor who runs that page. So everything is clear until now. Did I answer your question, Hussein?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very much.
So others, please tell me everything is clear until now or not. If you didn't understand anything, let me know. So we have done the class or the lecture for an hour now. Please let me know everything is clear until now. Hello guys. So there's Navoda, Veron, Omer, Tulasi, Shiha, Retmini, okay, Dimana or Dimana. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, 2 people have answered.
Yes, everything is fine, clear.
Okay, even in the chat you can send me questions, so you can answer me. Okay. Okay, we'll watch a small video now. Can you guys hear it? Is it audible?
No,
No,
sir.
it's unaudible.
Give me a second. Was it audible?
No, sir, it's not.
Were you able to see the visuals or the video?
Yes, sir, we were able to see it, not here.
Okay, now let me check.
This 10-mile long roll of newsprint paper alone will soon turn into 30,000 copies of the New York Times that will be on the newsstands and doorsteps of thousands of people in about 5 hours. It's 10 p.m. in the College Point neighborhood of Queens, New York, and the shift has just started for the workers at this printing plant, who will meticulously work through the early morning until 3 a.m. to print one of the most respected journalistic publications in the world. That paper you read in the morning over your cup of coffee probably will have come from one of these 27 different printing plants, passed through hundreds of hands, and been inspected by thousands of pairs of eyes before landing in your hands. We visited this 300,000 square foot printing facility in Queens to find out all that goes into this process. Although the Times is printed across the country, the Queens printing plant produces nearly 41% of the publication's daily papers. And when almost 80,000 copies of the paper are printed every hour, timing is everything.
Getting the paper out is an equation. We're graded every day on our arrival times. We have 52 trucks go out, for example, most nights. If they're on time, we get 100%. If a couple are late, it decrements from there. We're measured every morning on how our arrival times are.
First, a digital copy of the newspaper is sent to the printing plant. This paper is the final version that the editors, writers, and copy editors sign off on to be printed. From there, each page of the newspaper is digitally transferred to a plate using a laser machine. A plate is a sheet of aluminum that contains the image of a newspaper page on it. Each plate is equivalent to a single page of the newspaper. The plates are made in a room with special yellow lighting that helps protect the plate's muted image from exposure. This is what will eventually transfer to paper, but we'll get to more of that later. Plates that are ready to go to printing are stored in groupings based on the section they'll be in the actual newspaper.
This is the Sunday arts, or drama as we call it in our world.
This helps keep the plates organized and lets everyone know where each plate belongs in the printing stage. While the printing of the plates is taking place, giant rolls of paper are being transported by clamp trucks, which hug the roll to move it around. These rolls of newsprint are stacked and stored in a large warehouse. Each roll is 10 miles long and makes 30,000 newspapers. When the rolls are ready to be used, the outside paper is removed by hand. The paper is now ready to be brought over to the pressing machines. But before the printing happens, the damaged parts of the paper roll must be removed. Wrinkled or damaged paper can't be used for printing, so that portion of the roll is recycled. Now, this is where the true magic happens, the printing of the paper. The plates are individually put into the press cylinder by hand, and they're purposely connected to one another so they print in the direction the newspaper reads. And of course, there would be no newspaper without the ink. To print that many newspapers in a single night, massive amounts of ink are stored in extra-large containers and transported to each printing press through metal pipes. As the cylinders begin turning, ink gets splashed onto the muted image on the plates, and then that image gets transferred to a sheet of printing paper, creating the physical copy of the newspaper. Although the process needs to be quick and efficient, the printing plant doesn't sacrifice quality. It's about 3 a.m. at this point of the process. The paper is checked as it comes down the assembly line. Employees will look at the alignment of the paper and the coloring, making sure all of the imagery has transferred correctly. A large ruler that can accommodate the dimensions of the paper is used to check the positioning of the columns on each page. Once the papers are ready to go, they're wrapped up and shipped out to land on the doorsteps of their readers by early morning.
You're in the movie. Stay where you are. Yeah, go shave. Shave on your next. Both of you have to.
Okay, how was it? Get an idea about it? Hello, guys. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when the printing is done, copy is sent to the editorial for the editors and the sub editors to check it again. And when they give the green light, the newspapers will start circulating. They are taken by lorries or the trucks, and they go into the different parts of the country. And newspapers like New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, or the Hindu, Guardian, or so many other newspapers around the world, which have international editions, they circulate around the world. But newspapers like Daily Mirror, Maubima, and even in Sri Lanka, only few papers goes to north, others don't. Papers like Lanka Deepa, I think Dinamina, few papers only goes to the north or the northern parts of the country. Others don't. And in Jaffna, they have different other newspapers. They publish in Jaffna, centered in Jaffna. And when it comes to newspapers, there are different editions as well. As I like the edition that goes to Northeast, or that goes to Western Province, that goes to Northern Province. Like that, there are several other editions which are called the weekly or the daily, or thrice a week. So in Sri Lanka, it's majorly daily newspapers, daily editions, and the Sunday editions. But earlier in Sri Lanka, there were Wednesday editions, there were Friday editions, there were evening editions of the same newspaper, and so and so. But over the last few years, the newspaper industry has to face so many challenges, and because of the COVID, industry kind of fell down a bit, and the incomes or the revenue models also threatened. This was seen all around the world over a 2.5 decades, but several other international media outlets, so the newspapers have overcome those challenges by making different subscriptions models or different revenue models. And because of the COVID situation, the newspaper industry had to go through a difficult time, and they have reduced the newspapers. Now with the economic crisis and with the dollar shortages, uh, newspapers are not able to bring or they buy enough newspaper rolls that you saw in the video. So they have reduced the pages, they have cut the salaries. So newspaper industry going through a lot of issues over the last few years, and it has become worse. And so far we have discussed structure and the understanding newspapers and the editorials and some part of types of newspapers. Is it clear until now? You guys have to answer. Everyone
Yes,
has to give an answer. Okay, Bashini
Yes.
answered.
Yes, sir, clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Only that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You guys can answer in the chat box as well. Do you want anything to be cleared, or you have any want to have any clarifications, or you want to ask anything? What about the others? On few others are left. Hello, only Abdul, Amrita, Bashini. I think Sheha answered. What about the others? I think there are 11 students 11 people in the class. Only 5 or 6 answered so far. Hello, guys. Hello. Who else didn't answer? I will wait for a minute and then we'll move on. As if you have any doubts or if you didn't understand anything or you don't get it clear anything, you can ask now or you can clear out your doubts. And also you don't have to like parrots. You just need to read from the Google or just read from the or just look at the videos in the YouTube and make it put into your mind like a story or a historical story. And you get the experience and the learning experience and the working experience by working, not only by reading, but you have to do the both. So if you deep for the data and to read, and if you read stuff, you'll be able to remind these things easily. And this is not very hard subject. Working as a journalist is hard, but studying this isn't that hard. Okay, so I'm sorry I didn't see you. There are two questions from Bashini. Please give me a brief idea about the broadcasting journalist, job role and the duties. So broadcasting is not like the printing, it's kind of presenting, and there are different people in that broadcasting section. So if you look at BBC, there are audio journalists or what you call radio, people who work for the podcast. So if you look at the newspaper industry, sorry, not the newspaper, but all the media or the journalism industry, it has developed to certain levels now. You can subscribe to the newspapers or the magazines or whatever by making a payment. And there are also ways that you can get some amount of news by what do you call that word? By getting the newsletters. So there are podcasts as well. If you have Android, I don't know about the iPhone, there's a podcast section as well. Even in Google, you can download the Google podcast and you can subscribe to Al Jazeera, New York Times, Guardian, BBC, whatever. So in broadcasting, there are two things, what you see as visuals and the other is audio. So what you see as audio is you have to practice your voice, and that's a different subject. And when it comes to visuals, that's a different aspect of journalism where we have to present, we have to work. So if you look at in the easy way to you can look at is YouTube, you can go to the BBC or the Al Jazeera or whatever news platform, news outlet, you see how journalists present news or the other opinion pieces or whatever they are the experts of. So even in and also if you look at weather updates on that as well. So there are journalists and the presenters who are experts of different fields, different subjects. So they present on that, and even in audio as well. So and there are people who write the script. There are producers, there are news producers, the sport producers, and there are script writers. So, and if you look at the news, people are reading something from a script, and even in podcast, maybe presenting the news as well. I don't know. I'll be back again for the lectures, but I will share my contact details. You can ask anything you want later on. So types of newspapers, what you have seen in that video is broadsheet, what you call the large one. And there are tabloids as well, there are magazines. And if you look at magazines like The Economist or the National Geography, those are magazines a bit smaller than the tabloid. But have you guys seen Sandal, Rhythm, Me with those are tabloids in the newspapers. And also there are supplement sections as well, where like business section, advertisements or the advertorials and so and so. So the main types of newspapers are tabloid and broadsheet, but there are several other types as well, and the sizes. So this uh, division of or the categorization of newspapers mainly on tabloid and the broadsheet. What we have so in the video are the broadsheet newspapers, and there are tabloids, which I said now are the Sunderland, Lankadeepa, Niyamita, Revira, and there are so many other tabloids. But in UK, the tabloids is a different thing. The Sun, there are so many tabloids in there. I can remember now, and Daily Mail also is a tabloid. And if you look at the international magazines, like even in Sri Lanka, there are magazines like Go, the Pariganaka, so they're in different subjects, sports, Krida Kila, there's one called Krida. So there are different magazines. And if you look at the Reader's Digest, it's a small mini magazine, or not the size of number of pages, but in the size, it's kind of, it has large number of pages, but this is kind of a mini version of it. And I don't have a digest at the moment, but this is kind of Economist magazine. This is very small when compared to a newspaper. Don't have a newspaper to show, but those what you see so in the video is are the broadsheet magazines. And give me a second. You can ask until then. I figure out something. Until then, I can ask, or you can clear out any doubts. And I think there are a few people who joined lately. Give me a second.
Can you give me a minute? I have something to. Hello.
Sure.
Students, for your information that we have organized some practical sessions by next month. It will be in the college, or we will organize it at somewhere in a hotel. I cannot tell you because still I am not got the confirmation. But I wanted to keep inform you. You have to be ready for 3 days, and we will let you know very shortly. It will be physically. It will not be online, right? Also to inform you that we will start classes physically by next month. We are planning for it, so that please keep it in your mind. Also, I hope that you had a nice session with Mr. Tushara. Thank you.
Kevin Roy. Here there's another article which was published in 2018. You guys can see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this
Yes,
is
sir.
New York Times. And also they have different bureaus in different cities and different states in the United States. And they have, for example, New York have reporters in India, Russia, China, and they call them bureau chiefs. But like us, our papers don't have that luxury because we are small industry. And also they have different sections, different people, a lot of money invested on that. And you can see these plates. Earlier it wasn't like this. They had, which is called paste up. So people who have good handwriting, this all the stuff of these were done by manually. People paste in a large boards from all these letters, the headlines, and everything was pasted up. So they paste these everything on a plate and then put them into print. But now everything is digitalized and everything done in digital machines and the computers and everything. The printing process has become different. And this is how they check the newspapers. everything is in perfect way, or the colors and everything, because these colors might change because of the things that will happen in the printing process or the machines. And these how the newspaper is printing, and this is when the editors give the green light to circulate or the let the print newspapers go out. And this is how they put bundles and then sent by vans, the lorries or the trucks. So this is put into the newspaper outlets. You can see different newspapers here. I think it's USA Today, or different newspapers out in different places. And also in many other countries like USA or the other countries, there are free newspapers as well, which are given to the public on free. They are not charging. They put in racks close to the airports or the train stations, so and so. And so this is a BBC article. Okay, so this is what I've said to you guys. Every day hundreds of newspapers are published. The content and layout of each newspaper reflects its target readership. So every other newspaper has different target audience, different readership, and different people and different layouts. So if you look at the Rawe newspaper, it was everything on it was black, but now it's different newspaper, it's no longer printing. And if you look at Daily FT, which is published by the Vijay newspapers, it has a different layout and a different color. The color of the sheet or the paper is different. And if you look at Anitya newspaper, that is published by the independent group, and it has a different political ideology, and they stand for different political issues, and so, and it has a different layout. And if you look at Lankadeepa, Divayina, Maubima, those have similarities, but very different from each paper and the editorial and the sports page and everything. And if you look at Daily Mirror, it's different. Sunday Times is different. The number of pages, sections, supplements, everything is different. Here, these are some of tabloids. So Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, Sun. This is the tabloid version of newspapers. And our tabloids are different. We don't have this kind of tabloids. We have kind of supplementary tabloids, or this, like, which is come with Sunday comes with Sunday Lankadeepa, maybe with Trivira. I can't remember what's come with Maubima. And there was a Lakbima, Ridma, if you guys remember. So and as I said, the Daily FT, which is published by Vijay newspapers, have a different audio or different readership. It's targeted the business world, and Maubima, there's Ceylon Today newspaper as a business financial paper. So they have different audiorships, and it has a different readership audience. And the Sunday Times has a different readership. And you can see there is Wall Street Journal, that's a broadsheet newspaper published in United States and in other countries as well. So tabloids are very much kind of a gossip. You can not like our gossip sites, but it's very much similar but different as well. So they kind of see the picture. We don't put a picture in a broadsheet newspaper, like picture like this in a broadsheet newspaper. These are kind of gossip, but they talk about politics and every other thing. This is what it is said. Tabloids are image-led popular newspapers that can be subdivided into two red tops or middle market dailies. So these we don't have these kind of versions, but this is how British or the UK describe them. So broadsheets have less number of frames. The Times, Telegraph, The Guardian, which the New York Times, Lankadeepa, Sunday Times, Daily FT, all those newspapers that you have mentioned are broadsheet, and they are mostly text-based. The less amount of pictures, less amount of graphic, but if it is necessary, they put a photo. Even in most of the daily newspapers, they put only 1 or 2 photographs in the first page. And they have supplements, which I said in mostly on Sunday newspapers, that they have supplements on education, business, or maybe art and craft, or maybe on a movie and different stuff. So this is what I said. We mostly have daily and weekly. So most of the newspapers until the COVID published a Saturday newspaper as well, but now only Lankadeep is publishing a Saturday newspaper, and then they have a Sunday newspaper. So most of the Sri Lankan newspapers have daily and weekend or the weekly newspapers. So weekly newspapers are large in number of pages. They have different sections. So more than the daily papers have. They have supplements, they have tabloids as well, all included in one package. They have marriage proposals, and they have the buying and selling of properties and everything, so and so. So this is all done by the layout department or the layout division of the newspapers. And so in a news, there is a byline, what we call the person who wrote the news. And there are instances that people don't put their byline because of the safety issues, or maybe several other political issues, or maybe it depends on the situation, and mostly it's the safety, or maybe it's a news that they want to put but don't want to highlight who wrote it. So this is about the photographers, photography desk. There's a photography editor, and there's photographs who went with journalists to take photos of the press conference, protest, or the individuals, or the other thing. So newspapers editorial, which I said, they stand on an issue or a political ideology or something, whatever that they are writing. If they are writing about the QR pass, or the price, reducing the egg prices, or the maximum retail price, what stance they are on, what are they are standing on, what is the idea on that, and that. So that's how the editorial is published. So mostly in our context, our newspapers get photos by their photojournalist, or maybe the photos that are saved in their archives. So sometimes photographs may be taken from, this is nowadays by Facebook or on other social media. And we also get photos like agencies, which I told you guys, Reuters, Press Association, and there is a call Getty, and Getty is kind of a company which distribute or sell photographs, which they buy from individual photographers or agencies like Reuters and AFP. So there are headlines, sub-headlines, catch lines, and everything in a newspaper news article. So mostly those characters will put in a news feature or an article or opinion piece. But in news, there's only headline and a sub-headline, and then the news or the content. So this is what I said. When a copy is written, when a news is written, it will pass it to the news editor or the features editor or the respected. If it's a sports news, it goes to the sports editor, and then editor proofread and go through and fact check, and whatever that he has to do, he or she will do, and then he decide that this story should go in the front page or on this page, and he says to the sub editor, put this in the front page with this is a front page news, or this is an important news that has to go in a place which is very much visible. And then the layout, then the sub editors decide that where should this story go. If it is a front page, they don't have to decide. Sub editor is the one who is editing the copy, might put a headline, and who look at the grammar and also layout, just like I said. And also they put the headlines as well. So this is we discussed. And what is news value? News value is very is something which is we see as is it okay that we should publish it in tomorrow's newspaper? So is it will people read it, and how important this is to the public, and how catchy how will this news attract the audience? So they make it more attractive as to attract more readers or more of the public. So news agenda depends on the newspaper's political ideology or the ideology they stand for. So if you, for example, in USA, if the newspaper owners and the newspaper editors are more towards the Republican Party, they put Republican Party's news and they put their narratives into those stories. And if they are democratic, that will happen the other way. But in Sri Lanka, in most newspapers, they give space to all the main parties. They they dedicate a page to the president, whoever the president is, and to the prime, and half a page for the prime minister, and to the government. And then they also dedicate half page each to the main opposition and the other political parties in the page in the newspaper. So if there is a speech done by president today, that if the journalist who is covering the president or the news desk is able to get the copy of that speech, they might publish that in the 5th page. Mostly in Sri Lankan newspapers, the editorial and the column goes on the 4th page. And the 5th page is to the president or the prime minister or a very important figure in the country if he had made an important speech. And then the other pages goes to the main opposition and the others and the others. And then the general news. And the continuation of the front page news is in page 6, 8, 10 or on the other pages. The last page goes to the sports desk. And also in different days of the week, for example, in Lankadeepa, Monday there is a health supplementary, and Tuesday there's a business supplementary, and Wednesday I think it's art and drama, and also, and there is a political supplementary in Thursday. But within the current context and the crisis and everything, most of all the newspapers have reduced their number of pages to less than 20 or 15. So in newspapers, there are different sections, mostly on the larger ones. They have marketing division, there are advertising department. All those are not linked to the editorial. Those are the ones who decide on the other aspects or other parts of the newspaper. Editorial is only responsible for the content of the newspaper. So advertising department think that I'm from Coca-Cola, I want to put a ad on Lankadeepa newspaper. I can't go to the advertising department and talk to the respective officials or the people. And then I pay for the advertisement. And then I say that I want to place this ad on this newspaper on this date. And there are different prices or price tags for the newspapers and the pages. So the most costly space is page 1 and other pages, people who mostly read. So if you want to put an advertisement on that page, it might cost you so much of money. If you want to put a small and somewhere in a small place, that won't cost that much. But there are, you can see how the size of the ad, the colors and everything. You can have an idea, rough idea about how much this company or the individual or the people who have advertised or taken the space will have, how much they have paid. So circulation and the readership is number of newspapers that are distributed among the people. So the the newspaper which has the highest circulation in the country in Sri Lanka is Lankadipa, where I worked for almost 9 years, and they have almost 2 to 3 lakh circulation. That means how many people buy the newspaper, and readership might be more than that, because if I buy a newspaper and if there are 4 people in my house, at least 2 will read the newspaper, and even in the offices. So most offices buy all the newspapers, especially the government. So if they have 20 people in the organization, and if they want buy one newspaper, all those people will read that. We don't have the count of that, but circulation numbers will people get from how many copies they have sell or sold. So because over the last 2.5 decades, there is a huge threat on newspapers, because people were shifting to the mobile phones, email, internet, and to the digital world. So there were subscription models or the PDFs that came into the context, and then they have an online presence for the newspapers. So we can see now every newspaper outlet, every TV channel, every website, every radio channel have YouTube channel, Twitter account, Instagram profile, or a Facebook page. So, and also they have PDF versions and the subscription models as well. So I have subscriptions for several other international outlets, and you have to pay for them. So you can have the full access to the newspaper, and there are also limited access or the limited subscription models. So this is even in Sri Lanka, all major newspapers have web editions, and sometimes include more content than the printed. Yeah, because in printed or the newspapers, you can't put everything because the space is limited and there are less amount of pages. This is what I was saying. In 2005, 13 million newspapers were sold daily, but this is UK numbers. In 2015, the figure fell to 7 million. And if you want to take the Sri Lankan numbers, you can go to the central bank reports. You can have the numbers, how they have reduced, the numbers have reduced. So now there are so many new ways that people publish news. So the value of, or the newspaper industry has kind of a threat. But all around the world, and also in Sri Lanka, newspapers still play a major role, and they are able to create opinions, make policy changes, were able to send politicians home, and they have done a huge role until this moment. So newspapers are still powerful despite the selling or the circulation or the numbers have gone down. So ownership and editorial stance, sometimes owners will influence in the editorial, but sometimes not. So editorial independence is very important for a newspaper to have a public trust. If the public lose the trust on the editorial, on the newspaper content, and on the newspaper, they will lose the income, they will lose the circulation or the numbers. So editorials are very much, or editorials are so responsible, and so they take it very serious when it comes to the editorial independence. So there are instances in Sri Lanka and other countries where owners of the newspapers have influenced, and that led to the downfall of the newspaper or the media channel. So if you, this is very much, this is you can see this is very much in state-owned newspapers, TV channels, and radio institutions. If you look at the government, the state-owned newspapers, their income has gone down. If you look at Rupavahini and how they have lost income, so those are the instances where the owners influence affect badly, and there are instances owners influence have done a positive influence as well. So these are a few examples of who owns the main UK national newspaper. Sun, Times, Sunday. The Sun on Sunday are owned by Rupert Murdoch, You have heard about this guy, one of the major figures in the journalism industry. The Independent and by Alexander Lebdev, The Guardian and The Observer are owned by Scott Trust Limited. And this is kind of a very respected media out around the world because they are funded by public as well. So these are examples for that. Any questions so far now?
Excuse me, sir. The article
Yeah.
that you were just reading, sir, I would like to read that once again too. Could I get the link if possible?
Yeah, I will send you all the links. And all other links and the reading materials. So Milroy have asked why they print tabloid. So it's kind of a culture that brought out especially within the Europe. But our tabloid newspapers are very much different because in our tabloid newspapers or our tabloids, it was about all the individuals. They will put in the front page, they will put a photo of an actress or an actor or a sports figure or someone who is famous, maybe a singer, and they put an interview about him, and they put several other things that the soft news people are interested in. And in UK and other countries, tabloids are very kind of a gossipy and also criticize and kind of, you have heard of the word paparazzi. They go into the private lives of the important or the famous or the popular people. Any questions until now? And even about the Bollywood stuff, if you look at, see the tabloid newspapers in Sri Lanka, there are news about the Bollywood stars and everything. So it's kind of popular culture. They put private incidents or what happened to this one, who married this one. But the ones that I've shown you about the political stuff, there are political gossips as well. Guys, you have any questions until now? Any questions or any doubts that you want to clear out? Yes, there are 10 students in the class. Oh, I guess tired now or sleepy. Abdul, Amirta, Bash. Oh, you guys need a 5-minute break.
Well, we are supposed to do for only 2 hours online.
Okay.
But we will continue when we start physically. There will be 6 hours of time because online it's a bit difficult, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's up to the student. If they like to stay, they can.
Okay. So if you get, Milroy, I'm going to do another lecture. Am I supposed to do several other lectures to this group?
Yes. It's coming up. The thing is that we are giving some introductions at the moment about television, print media, radio. It goes around like, and next week they're probably having the introduction to radio. And from there onward, they will be continue. They will dive into deep,
Okay. So guys, tell me if you're tired or you want to continue straight away or you need a few minutes break.
I can, sir.
Okay, you can. And people, if you want to go have a drink or have just a walkout, go and come within. It's 2:40 now. Come before 2:45. And people who wants to clear out things or people who have doubts, You can ask now. Or you want to ask anything about journalism, you can ask. Or you can put in the chat as well. Guys, if you want to ask anything, I'm here.
So, what is your profession now?
What do you mean?
The job you do?
I am now a media analyst and also a fact checker.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And do you know what is fact checker?
I thought of searching it later. Can you clear me?
Okay. So in early times, in the news desk, there are people who are assigned to fact check, even in the 1920s. But with the information, kind of like an information bombardment or the thousands of information today, the most important thing is information or the data. So because of that, there are disinformation campaigns. Have you heard the word disinformation, misinformation, or fake news? Okay.
Fake news, yes.
Yeah. So there are so if you were looking at the news or the TV channel for the past 3 to 5 years, you have seen so many disinformation like the Kalanina. So there are so many disinformation to mislead the public, to change the minds of the public, or to deceive them, or to make their minds or to change their mind. So this happened all around the world from time to time, and this disinformation of fake news is not a new phenomena or a new concept. It was there for hundreds of years, even when the kings were there. But in 2015, 16, during the election, when the election that Donald Trump became the president, fake news became a large issue or a big issue, and it was discussed around the world. And there then comes a different category, different subset of a discipline or a profession, that is fact checking. So there are fact checkers all around the world who look at the content on media or the traditional media, what we call TV, radio, the newspapers, and then the online space, website, social media, Facebook, and everything. Look at those, and if there's anything that is misleading the public, or if you suspect that is fake or that is false, whatever, and then they're going to fact check it and they're going to debunk it. So even in journalists in their profession, or the journalists themselves fact check, but journalists kind of have different agendas, even the fact check, but fact checkers can't. So even from journalists or the trusted journalists, they have put fake news, or they have put misleading or different kinds of news that are false or misleading. Because of that, there's a new profession, that is fact checking. It was there in newspapers and everything, even during 100 years, a separate desk when journalists write something, and there's a fact checker who calls those institutions, or who look at those numbers, and if he has written some numbers about the economy, the fact checker goes through the central bank reports or whatever that they have, and then double check it. So now it has become a different discipline, different job.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Everyone is back, and everyone understood what we have discussed so far. Hello guys. I think there are there should be 9 to 10 people. Navoda or Navoda were silent for a lot of time. Did you understand what we have discussed, or you have any doubts? Navoda or Navoda?
Navoda.
Okay. What do you mean? I do. What do you mean by sir? Is it clear to you? Everything is okay? Or you have any doubts? Then Veron, Tulasi, Shiha, Nithmi was silent although during the lecture. George, Dimana, Amrita, Bashini. Are you guys clear or do you have any doubts?
No, sir.
It's clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we'll look at another video. As I was saying, yes, who's going to speak? Guys, let me know if you have questions. I can understand that it's kind of a sleepy time and it's very tiring when you do online. It's not like the physical class. It is understandable. So you guys can talk. You can say that I'm tired or whatever that you want to say. Okay, let's watch another video. So I was telling to you guys that the newspapers still are very powerful, but economic wise, the readership, the circulation is falling, and they are in a very threatened status. So the future of journalism still kind of uncertain, but if you guys remember when the mobile phones came, people thought that's the end of the TV and the radio. When the television came, people thought that's the end of the radio. And when the radio came, people thought that's the end of the newspapers. We have to understand that there is a decline and there is kind of a fall, but they still play a major role, even the books. And also even to the date, newspapers are very powerful, and then they can send politicians home, they can close down the businesses, they can reveal the corruption and everything. So they are still opinion making, they are still powerful, and they can change the mindset of the people. And you have another topic about the history of the newspapers all around the world that I will share a reading material you have to go through, and you can read it like a story. And if you're going to read it, the story here, you will fall asleep. And you can here watch the rise and fall of the newspaper. So this is done by Australian Broadcast Service, public broadcast, and there are public broadcasts around the world, just like BBC, which are funded by the public or the government, which are non-aligned. Sometimes they carry the agendas or the opinions of the government in the power. And also there are crowdsourcing media channels, websites, radio channels, community radios, community TV channels, and there are newspapers which are published within the community. And if you think that you are in a small village, or you don't, sometimes they publish small newspapers. It's like that we publish a magazine or something that when we are in the school, and it's like our school radio or a TV channel that we used to have. Most of the schools have had or still have their own radio channels, and they sometimes put small magazines or newspapers which is done by their own money or collecting from the students or from the parents, or mostly parents, or maybe the school funds. You guys can see and listen, right? It's audible and
Yes, sir.
Was a time when newspapers ruled the news kingdom. If you wanted to know info about what was happening in the world, you got it from the paper. And some of the biggest stories ever told were told in print. Australia's first newspaper was printed way back in 1803 on an old school printing press, which actually came over on the first fleet, though it took a decade for people to figure out how to use it. From there, newspapers took off all over the place. At first, they were just pages of text, but eventually they had photos and much-loved extras like crossword puzzles. The newspaper kingdom grew vast, with national, state and local newspapers, and it was a rich kingdom. Thanks to advertising. You see, people would pay to put their ad in the paper, knowing it would get to thousands. That sweet, sweet ad money helped to build media empires, like Fairfax and News Corp, which now own nearly all Australian newspapers. But over the years, there have been some rivals to the newspaper throne. First, there was radio, then TV, but the toughest foe has turned out to be the internet. Unlike newspapers, info here can be updated instantly, you can search for what you want to read, and there are no printing costs. Sites like these have soaked up a lot of the advertising money that would have once gone to newspapers. Of course, they have websites too, but many are struggling to make money, so they're finding ways to cut costs. Recently, News Corp announced it was shutting down 112 of its Australian community and regional papers at the end of this month.
That's the changing times. You go on a tram now, you don't see a bunch of guys with hats reading the newspapers, you see a lot of kids on phones.
Matt Dayton works for News Corp. He's spent many years writing for community papers, and he says they cover stories other news outlets don't.
I think I've covered everything from an AFL game to the local under-11 lacrosse team. Those stories that are actually what might matter to a small group of people, but it matters a lot to that group of people.
News Corp says it's still going to employ journalists to cover community stories, but they'll go into big city newspapers and online.
The loss of papers is not a loss of journalism.
But while News Corp is keeping 76 of its community papers online, 36 will be gone for good. And some people say that's a huge problem because there'll be parts of Australia where news just isn't covered. Some have pointed out that News Corp is a big global company that's actually making heaps of money at the moment from other types of media. So it could afford to keep their papers going. Plus, many think there's still a demand for your good old-fashioned newspaper.
I prefer a physical paper.
I'd have nothing to read of a morning now.
In fact, here in Naracoorte in SA, one local has recently launched his own newspaper, and he says it's selling really well.
It's making people talk to each other again. And that's not my words, that's what I'm hearing out as we're out.
However we get our news, many say a healthy democracy depends on everyone having access to quality reporting from a variety of sources. And while the reign of printed newspapers seems to be coming to an end, many are hoping it doesn't mean
Hello guys, sorry that I got a power cut and it took time for me to connect from the hotspot. So Milroy will end the class for today, right? Hello.
Hello, sorry, can you come again?
No, I got a power cut and then
Okay.
it took time for me to connect from the hotspot. Shall we end the class for today and we'll continue some other day?
Yeah, sure, sure. What about coming Sunday again? Okay.
We can do it on coming Sunday.
Okay, okay. Students.
And is there a WhatsApp group or can I share the materials with you or what?
Yeah, I had you to the WhatsApp group. That's okay because they also can, be with you, in touch with you. Okay,
Sure.
I'll add you right away.
Okay, guys, any quick questions before winding up? Are there any doubts that you want to clear out?
No, sir, we are clear. Thank you, and let's meet next week.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No questions, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Welcome. And okay, if there's anything that you want to clarify or you want to make it clear, you can contact me. I mean, I think Milroy will add me to a WhatsApp group, whatever that we have. And also, guys, read on the materials and also look at the news. If you can't read the newspapers, at least go through the websites or at least go through the website or the YouTube. And also, if you guys are from the English media, so whenever possible, go read international newspaper. You don't have to subscribe to everything, but you can read the major news or a major item, especially BBC, The Guardian. So there are so many free news outlets that give you news and the newspapers. So select one, at least read a one news per day. You can get a clear idea. And people who are interested in broadcast, you guys can go to the YouTube channel and you can look at Al Jazeera, BBC, and other platforms, how they report. So when you look at the international media, there are two perspectives, two categories, which are Western and the others are Eastern. And Eastern, you can see the Chinese, the Russians, and also the Indian. And the Western perspectives and how they report news is different, and how the Indians and the Chinese and the Russian or the other parts are reporting news are different. And also the Middle East part, which is kind of a mix of Western and the Eastern. If you look at TRT World, Al Jazeera, Middle East News, Middle East Monitor, so there are a few others you can look at. So thank you very much, guys. Keep working on and have a nice weekend. I think it's kind of almost half the day is gone, but enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you for joining the class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.